Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the world you live in has suddenly become more dangerous than ever before. Missiles flying across borders, drones filling the skies, naval ships blocking vital sea routes, and powerful nations preparing their armies. Many people around the world are asking the same question right now. Is the world heading toward another massive war? The truth is, a new conflict has already begun, and its impact is spreading far beyond one region. What started as a sudden military strike has now turned into a complex international crisis involving multiple powerful countries, dangerous alliances, and rising global tension. On February 28, 2026, the world witnessed a shocking moment that changed global politics overnight. The United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes on Iran, targeting military bases, strategic facilities, and high-level leadership inside the country. These attacks were part of a major operation aimed at weakening Iran's military capabilities and stopping what Western leaders claimed was a growing nuclear threat. During the strikes, several high-ranking Iranian officials were killed, including Iran's supreme leader. This single event ignited one of the most dangerous conflicts in recent years. For Iran, the attacks were not just a military strike. They were seen as an act of war and an attempt to destabilize the entire Iranian government. Within hours, Iran responded with massive retaliation. Ballistic missiles and drones were launched toward Israeli territory and several American military bases across the Middle East. Countries such as Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates suddenly found themselves in the middle of a growing regional conflict. But this war did not appear out of nowhere. The tension between Iran and Israel has been building for decades. For years, Israel has viewed Iran's nuclear program as a direct threat to its survival. Iran, on the other hand, has accused Israel and the United States of interfering in the Middle East and attempting to control the region. Over time, both sides began engaging in indirect conflict, cyber attacks, covert operations, and proxy wars through allied groups across the region. Things escalated dramatically in the years leading up to 2026. In 2024 and 2025, several missile exchanges occurred between Iran and Israel. One of the most intense moments happened during what analysts called the 12-day war in 2025, when the United States conducted strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Although that conflict eventually slowed down, the hostility never truly disappeared. The Middle East remained a powder keg waiting for the next spark. That spark arrived in February 2026. When the joint strikes by the United States and Israel hit Iranian territory, the balance of power in the region instantly shifted. Iran's response was swift and aggressive. Missile attacks targeted Israeli cities, while drones were sent toward American bases throughout the Gulf region. Military alerts were declared across multiple countries as air defense systems attempted to intercept incoming attacks. But the conflict did not stop there. Another dangerous development quickly followed. Iran warned that global shipping routes could be disrupted if the war continued. One of the most critical choke points in the world, the Strait of Hormuz, suddenly became a center of tension. This narrow waterway is responsible for transporting a massive portion of the world's oil supply. When Iranian forces began restricting certain ships from passing through the strait, global energy markets immediately reacted with fear and uncertainty. Oil prices began rising rapidly, airlines changed routes, and shipping companies delayed cargo movements. The economic consequences of the war were being felt thousands of kilometers away from the battlefield. Countries that had nothing to do with the conflict suddenly found themselves dealing with rising fuel costs and supply chain disruptions. At the same time, another front of the conflict began to open. Hezbollah, a powerful armed group based in Lebanon and closely allied with Iran, launched rocket attacks toward northern Israel. The group said the attacks were retaliation for the killing of Iranian leadership during the initial strikes. Israel quickly responded with airstrikes and military operations across southern Lebanon. Entire villages were evacuated as thousands of civilians fled the growing violence. Now the conflict was no longer just between Iran and Israel. It had expanded into Lebanon, threatening to pull even more countries into the war. Military analysts warned that if the fighting continued, other regional actors could become directly involved. Meanwhile, global superpowers began reacting carefully. Some countries supported the United States and Israel, arguing that Iran's military expansion and nuclear ambitions needed to be stopped. Others strongly criticized the attacks, warning that they could push the entire region into chaos. The United Nations held emergency meetings as world leaders attempted to prevent further escalation. Diplomats called for immediate ceasefires and negotiations, but on the battlefield, the fighting continued. What makes this conflict especially dangerous is how interconnected the modern world has become. Wars today are not isolated events. They affect energy supplies, global trade, technology networks, and international alliances. A missile launched in the Middle East can impact fuel prices in Europe, shipping routes in Asia, and political decisions in Washington, Moscow, and Beijing. Another worrying factor is the technology being used in this war. Unlike older conflicts dominated by tanks and large armies, modern warfare increasingly relies on drones, cyber attacks, and precision missiles. Iran's drone capabilities have expanded significantly in recent years, and these unmanned systems are now being used extensively across the region. Drones are cheaper than traditional fighter jets, but they can still cause massive damage. Hundreds of them can be launched simultaneously, overwhelming air defense systems. This has made warfare faster, more unpredictable, and harder to control. At the same time, cyber warfare is also playing a major role. Experts believe that both sides are attempting to disrupt each other's infrastructure through digital attacks targeting energy systems, communication networks, and military command centers. But perhaps the most worrying question people are asking is this: could this war grow into something even bigger? History has shown that many large wars begin with a single spark. World War I started with the assassination of one archduke, yet it eventually pulled dozens of countries into a global conflict. Today's world is even more interconnected and militarized. That means the risk of escalation is always present. If more countries join the war directly, the situation could become far more dangerous. The Middle East contains several powerful militaries, advanced missile systems, and in some cases, nuclear capabilities. A miscalculation by any side could trigger a chain reaction that spreads far beyond the region. However, there are also reasons to believe that world leaders may try to prevent the conflict from expanding further. Major global powers understand that a large-scale war could devastate the global economy and create instability everywhere. For that reason, diplomatic pressure is already building behind the scenes. Back-channel negotiations, international mediation efforts, and economic sanctions are all being discussed as possible ways to slow the conflict. Whether these efforts succeed will depend on how willing each side is to step back from the brink. For ordinary people around the world, the war is a reminder of how fragile global stability can be. In a matter of days, tensions that had been building for years suddenly exploded into open conflict. The consequences are still unfolding, and no one knows exactly how this situation will end. What is clear, however, is that this war is not just about one country or one region. It represents a struggle over power, influence, security, and the future balance of global politics. The coming weeks and months will be critical. Military decisions, diplomatic negotiations, and international alliances will all shape the direction of this conflict. Whether it leads to a larger war or eventually moves toward peace is something the entire world is watching closely. And while the headlines show explosions, missiles, and military operations, the real cost of war is always paid by ordinary people. Families forced to leave their homes, cities damaged by airstrikes, and generations growing up in the shadow of conflict. As this situation continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the world has entered another uncertain chapter in global history, and the outcome of this conflict could shape international politics for many years to come. If you want to stay informed about major global events, understand the hidden stories behind international conflicts, and learn how these events impact the future of our world, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others who want to understand what's really happening beyond the headlines.